I want to do introductions quickly to get to this table. Welcome back to the show to Todd Swanstrom from the University of Missouri St. Louis, resident Renaissance man is how I like to refer to you. Also, Katie Jamborets with the St. Louis County Economic Development Partnership. Welcome back. And first time on the show for Aaron Perlett, Elasticity, and also Rally St. Louis, which we've heard a lot about. Why should we care about this conversation beyond, if I'm not 20-something and looking for a new place to settle down and be cool, why do I care?
Do you care about the airport? Do you care that we have more direct flights? It's net population gain.
Yeah, I think it's necessary for economic growth in the modern economy. If you don't have innovation, if you're just producing routine products, mass manufacturing, you're on the downslide. You have to constantly innovate and be ahead of the curve. And then if you can innovate for a while, you have a product that no one else has, and you can charge a monopoly price, as they say, and you can begin to accumulate. So it's about that. But I want to also stress the need to broaden the conversation, because one of my concerns here is that if we focus only on tech, only on these highly paid professionals, there's a lot of creative and talented people that I think provide the backdrop. I'm talking about artists and poets and nonprofit entrepreneurs and others. So I think we have to think more broadly about talent, not just in the tech terms.
I know you're passionate about this city. Seems like you're trying to win people over all the time. Why, and is it working?
Well, Katie and I work in the space of perception and shaping perception, and one of the things that hasn't been talked about tonight has been kind of how perception of a region is shaped. And one of the biggest challenges with St. Louis has been kind of, that I've seen in my 8.5 years here, has been kind of this historic parochialism that has plagued kind of every corner of it, that I've actually seen really dissipate over the last 5 years. And as a result, I think we're finally getting to the point where, as a region, we're ready to kind of address the issue of shaping perception. And where perception is shaped today is online through search engines. And because there's never been kind of a collective regional effort to shape the way that people perceive the region from outside, that's really never been done, because no one's really ever had, I don't want to say the authority, but taken a budget and said we need to really focus on the entire region. And so now you have people like Katie worked for Denny Coleman, working with Joe Reagan, working with Mayor Slay, working with Charlie Dooley, working with Mark Kern, that are looking at this region as a whole and saying, how can we really shape the perception of the greater St. Louis region to help bring talent here, to bring investment here, to bring jobs here, to bring large companies here, to keep the squares of the world here. So I mean, looking at it from more of a 50,000 square foot view, I think that's one of the biggest issues that needs to be addressed, and that's going to really have a huge impact on talent. And fortunately, I think it's something that is going to be addressed in the next year.
That's very specific. Is there something you're teasing us with there in the next year?
I think we are combining marketing budgets. I mean, we're getting a lot better about not spending a lot of money in different places, and rather than saying let's look at what we're all doing and at least coordinate it all, so it all has one message, so we're all saying one thing. And if we can, there are places where we can spend our money and get more return on it because we spend it together. Then we're trying to think of ways to do that.
Todd, you've talked before about the story we tell ourselves. Are the outsiders telling us a different story, or are we starting to believe a different story internally?
I really think that we need to begin telling each other a different story about St. Louis, and I think that's one way you change is the outsider's perception. I think my sense is that outsiders have a much better perception of St. Louis sometimes than the people who live here.
Is it wrong that we're even using the word outsiders?
I think that's a really, really good point. And then just some of the language that you see dissipating is like, oh, St. Louis, it's a great family town. Well, it is, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. To somebody who doesn't have kids or isn't looking for a place to raise a family, that doesn't resonate with them. So we have to have a lot of different ways to explain the value of St. Louis and the world-class amenities here, the great cost of living. For a lot of these jobs, if you can get the same job in San Francisco, your money is going to go so much further in the housing market here and the cost of living and the free world-class amenities. So it's a better quality of life, and you actually feel like you're making more.
Where do we pitch this? Where do we make these announcements to the world? And you're talking about online search results. How are we spreading this message?
Well, I mean, I think there's a number of ways, and I actually just kind of wrote a piece in Forbes last week about this, how regions can kind of effectively position themselves as startup hubs. And there's a variety of steps, and what it typically starts off with is having kind of a unified message platform. And again, it gets back to this unification of this region with everyone, as Joe Reagan likes to say, rowing in the same direction. That hasn't happened before. So basically saying, what is our value proposition? Can a number of people articulate what that value proposition is, not just one person, or not just 2 or 3 people. Then having kind of a centralized hub that really can tell certain stories that we wanted to say about the region. So for instance, right now you've got Accelerate STL, which is kind of the startup hub for the region. But is there kind of these different hubs that tell different stories about what we're trying to build upon here? And then there's other aspects of it. There is the PR aspect of it, is talking to outside media that's trying to not necessarily influence them, but get them to tell the story of what St. Louis is today, not what it was 10, 15 years ago. And then there's a number of other steps, including you can influence search. There is a very strategic and methodic way you can actually go through search engine results and influence what is there, but it just takes a collective effort.
And if you think if you're a reporter and you haven't been downtown in a few months, it changes week to week. What if you're a national reporter who hasn't been to St. Louis in 3 years? Your idea of what St. Louis is and what it is now and the ways it's changed in the last 12, 18 months is so dramatic.